Thad Brown along with Carl Jones here to talk about the film version of the Bills' loss to the Dolphins. Carl is a former Division I Syracuse cornerback. I've been watching Bills film for years. I'm still, very much a novice at it, not the expert level. That's why Carl's here, someone who's actually lived the film as opposed to just watch the film. But I do like talking X's and O's and all the different parts of what goes into it. So we want to kind of discuss some of the things we saw, some of the different factors that go into this particular Bills loss, and hopefully we'll do this all throughout the season. So Bills, Dolphins, Carl, let's start on offense. And I think the big thing that stuck out to me from this is the amount of time the Dolphins dropped into not only, we've heard about two deep against the Bills, basically two deep safeties, teams saying to the Bills, you're not going to go over our heads. We're going to keep everything in front, try and force you into long drives. Well, the Dolphins took that to another level. They went three deep a lot. There were a lot of coverages, which were four linebackers or four cover players underneath with three safeties or two safeties and a corner deep. And I thought it was a real effective defense, or look, as effective as it gets against the Bills. There's only so much you can do against this Bills offense. It's that good, and the quarterback's playing that well. But you saw the Bills had a 14-play drive, and then a 20-play drive, and then a 17-play drive. And they didn't score touchdowns on anything but the first one, So the Dolphins seemed to do a good job of forcing the Bills to play it short, take some checkdowns. And it wasn't just when they ran those coverages either. The other thing I thought the Dolphins did pretty well is they just kept blitzing over and over. And look, this is what the Dolphins do. We talked about this before. They will send the house. 3 of the first 12 snaps were cover zero blitzes where everybody but the defenders left to go one-on-one with receivers was blitzing the quarterback. What that did, I thought, too, was when Josh Allen gets blitzed, and when most quarterbacks get blitzed, the general reaction is I'm going to throw hot. I'm going to throw immediately to a short receiver, often where the blitzer is coming from in the vacated space. But what happens is the Bills get 8 yards and not 18. And the Dolphins blitzed over and over, and sometimes it didn't work, but the Bills had to take 14, 20, and 17 plays down the field. I don't know if, I guess the question for you is, how much do you think other teams can replicate what the Dolphins did? Because we can talk about the heat, we can talk about everything else that happened. Bills offense scored 17 points in a full game.
Everyone talks about the Bills put up nearly 500 yards and had all those extensive play drives, but at the end of the day, they didn't put up enough points to win the game. But I think with the Dolphins, it was so unique with their defense. They have the DBs that are disciplined enough to play that style, that can tackle in space, that aren't getting beat over the top, that can, make Stephon Diggs second guess, make Gabe Davis second guess. Because in a lot of those times with those cover zero situations or those situations where you're on an island as a DB, you got to have really, really great discipline and be in tune with your playbook. Because, man, it's a lonely feeling out there where it's you, Diggs, and a whole bunch of green grass behind you, and those Dolphins DBs are able to execute the game plan. On the flip side, the Ravens, who the Bills will play this week, run a similar style of a lot of blitzing and a lot of those exotic looks, but they clearly aren't as disciplined as the Dolphins were in that aspect. So I believe, yes, other teams can try to duplicate that game plan as much as they can try, but you still got to have the guys who can be disciplined enough to do that, and you got to be able to tackle, cover, and just be in tune with the playbook in unison as one. Because a couple of times, as we talked about in the touchdown to McKenzie over the middle, they did have a mental lapse when they were strained a little bit. So it's not really easily replicated, but when you can do it, you see the result that you can have.
You talk about cover zero and teams going man-to-man behind it. What about the times when the Dolphins seem to drop in? They did some cover 2 with 5 under. They did some cover 3 with 4 under. To me, that seems like go find your landmark and stand there. What NFL corner can't do that? Is that unfair to say?
It's a little unfair to say just for the simple fact that the offenses, they're so in tune, they're so talented these days. They know the landmarks just as well as the DBs do. I mean, this isn't Josh Allen's first rodeo seeing a defense of this caliber. So, yes, if you play Madden, tell the linebacker to stand there, tell the corner to stand 8 yards back. But unfortunately, the offense plays Madden too, right? They get paid too. It does sound simple, but at the end of the day, both teams get paid handsome amounts of money to figure out the weaknesses of every single defense.
A couple of notes from the offense that I saw. I don't need to inform anyone who's listening or watching. The offensive line wasn't very good, and the heat was a part of it, and the backups that came in were a part of it. But it was happening from the first quarter on. Spencer Brown had an awful day. Now, I remember at the end of the first quarter, he was down on one knee. There was someone on the field fanning him with a towel. That's how, and it was that hot. And then the first few plays of the second quarter, Brown, that was when he had his real bad meltdown. So certainly the heat might have gotten to him early. But look, it just wasn't a very good day. for the offensive line. And I think the other thing that needs to be discussed, we're only 3 games in, so we don't really know, but this is 2 games in a row where the O-line just hasn't done a thing in the run game. You know, this is not about the running backs. I've had people tell me, well, Zach Moss doesn't need to carry the ball. Zach Moss was the one guy that hit a nice run. Right, exactly. You know, so this offensive line has plenty of time to improve. It's still early. They're still new together in a lot of ways, and because of injuries, haven't played a ton of snaps together. But this game and the Tennessee game, they did not block the ball well or block very well in the run game as well. What else did you see offensively kind of stuck out to you?
I know everyone's talking about, oh, Josh Allen's a superhuman quarterback, put the ball in his hands as much as you can. But with the offensive line not being as strong, with Mitch Morse being out and Spencer Brown leaving the game, they're too Josh Allen reliant right now. They have to figure out other ways to be effective. 90 plays, he passed the ball 63 times, ran it 8 others. That means over 71 plays, and 71 plays, Josh Allen was responsible for the play. And that's just too much burden for one person to have. I mean, you saw down the stretch, it was a lot of plays where Dolphins defenders were right there, nearly could have picked it off. I understand that the running game isn't a strong suit right now. I'm not telling them to just run into a brick wall, because clearly that's an issue right now. But some of those easy access throws that were there against the Rams, that were there against the Titans, where the corners are off and just pitch and catch the digs, which is an extension of the running game. They need to bring back some more of that. Even Tom Brady with the Patriots during the latter years, they didn't have a stellar running game, but they still found a way to use their backs or use some of their slot guys as an extension of that. The Bills need to get back to that, what I saw in week 1 against the Rams, where every single time a corner was off 8 yards, Josh Allen would be like, okay, cool, throwing right out to him. They need more of that, some continuity, until this running game can at least get up to speed in some way.
How much of that was the different blitzes the Dolphins were bringing? I mean, in the second half, they were bringing wide corners as a blitzer, not just slot guys, not just linebackers, but the dude that's out in the boundary is the guy that's coming in on a blitz. When you don't know if that guy's coming, or if he's up in a press-looking technique, it's not as easy to just take those 8 yards on the outside.
Oh, that's 100% the reason. Like that is the reason why they weren't able to do so. I was keeping track throughout the first 3 quarters. The Dolphins were impressed more than any other team the Bills have seen so far this year. And I believe wholeheartedly that's because they want to take away some of those easy access throws. Once again, the Dolphins DC watches film just like everyone else, and they see, oh, okay, they can't run the ball well, and when they can't do that, they just want to pitch it out to Crowder or Diggs or even Cook on a quick out pattern or whatever. Let's just take it away. So, yeah, I believe that had everything to do with why they couldn't take some of those easy access and, I guess, easy access throws. All
right, let's flip over to the defensive side of the ball. The thing that really stood out to me, and look, there were a whole bunch of new pieces there, so it's hard to sit here and say, oh, well, Jaquan Johnson was in the wrong spot in 15 plays. But the 3rd and 22 play, and this has been diagrammed in a lot of places, and, watching again myself, there were so many things that felt wrong. And look, we're not in the coach's room. We're not in Leslie Frazier's head. There may be restrictions on who was on the field that we don't understand. But to me, 2 really negative things stuck out to me about that play. Number one, a lot of fans pointed this out, and the fans were right here. Rushing 3 seemed like the wrong call. But not only that, they dropped Greg Rousseau. If you're going to pick one guy to drop, the guy who had a sack and a half in the game is not the guy I want to pick. And actually, when I first saw it, I thought they dropped Von Miller because I saw the 0. I didn't know if it was a 4 or a 5. So they drop Greg Rousseau, and you have him cover 5 yards downfield. Not only are you wasting Greg Rousseau, but you don't need anybody covering 5 yards downfield on 3rd and 22. And the other thing I want to talk to you about, because this one I'm a little less sure of, but I feel like it's a point that should have been not done the way it was done. It's 3rd and 22. So the Dolphins have to get the ball 22 yards or more. The only 2 defenders on the play who were in the area beyond the line to gain, in other words, the place where the Dolphins would get a first down, were the 2 kids that never started before, Damar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson. It doesn't seem to make sense. I know it's 3rd and 22. You don't want to drop 5 guys beyond 25 yards downfield. But why leave those 2 guys essentially on an island in the only place where Tua can get a first down, inviting him to say, just throw the ball over all of our experienced guys' heads to pick up a first down?
I'm not going to lie. I'm not really a fan of cover 2 in long distance situations. I've been like that ever since I got to Syracuse, where you first learn that coverage. I'm just not a fan of it because, like you said, you're putting a lot of stress on your safeties, especially your ones that started for the first time all season this year, and they're going against 2 track stars, like bona fide guys who can fly. And with that specific coverage, there's not like any rerouting or anyone that's going to be able to get their hands on those receivers on that route. Jalen Waddle started from point A to point B without one person touching them, and that's unfair to ask any player on this planet. I don't care if it was prime Deion Sanders, Jordan Poyer, or Micah Hyde. No one is going to be able to stop that route on the front side, at least. I wasn't a fan of the call, and It's a little worrisome to see because I don't like bringing the pass back because the pass is the pass. But even in the Chiefs' 13 seconds situation where the Bills were in cover 2 again and they were dropped into the parking lot, but in that situation they were too far back. Mm-hmm. Can we get a happy medium of running cover 2 right?
They were too close this time.
Can we run cover 2 right? I mean, we learned that back in college, guys. So whether that's the execution or, like you said, some of the landmarks or the coaching, they have to figure that out because they're going to be faced with a lot more of those situations.
Give credit to the Dolphins there, too. They did a nice job of having a receiver in the middle because it looks like Tremaine Edmonds is trying to get down 22 yards, get into that line to gain area, and they had a receiver that basically occupied him that opened up the middle. And you know what? Sometimes the other team, just does a good job of scheming stuff up, too. Like you said, they get paid also. Defensively, a couple of things that stuck out to me. I thought Tim Settle had a really good game. He's been kind of banged up early. I think it was mostly first half for him, but he was active in the pass game. He was really good against the run. Daquan Jones, who's been good all year, had another solid game. And I'll tell you what, Jamarcus Ingram, if you want to grade him on the scale of practice squad guy who we had to play because no one else was left, he didn't do a terrible job. On the flip side, Kyer Elam, I don't know if he had a good or a bad game. I know that the Dolphins threw a lot of passes to his side of the field and completed a lot. And I know that there were a lot of plays where it seemed like he was standing in just garden grass and no one was around him. Whether he was in the wrong place or whether someone next to him was in the wrong place, entirely possible with all the new guys around him, was anybody's guess. I'm not, again, in Leslie Frazier's head. But you had a first-round pick who, for the most part in the game, just didn't defend anyone.
Or make an impact. And once again, I don't know if that was his doing or some of the calls, or I'm sure they figured that out on Sunday whenever they got back to Orchard Park. But I would want to see a little bit more impact out of a guy that we took that high in the draft. And once again, it could have been play calls where he just didn't have an opportunity to make an impact, and we're not in that defensive meeting room. But it's some other guys who I thought stood out in a positive way. Matt Milano and Taryn Johnson. Matt Milano had 2 stops on 3rd down where he just stuck the guy in the hole.
Both were excellent.
And love to see that, especially with all the pieces that are coming and going on that side of the ball. Love to see him making those plays at the line of scrimmage. No yak, none of that. I'm stopping you right at the line of scrimmage. That's impressive to see. And then also, I know we all forget Taryn Johnson because he's not, on the outside or deep, but he's a defensive back, guys. He plays defensive back as well, and he played phenomenal. I mean, we talk about all the time, every single time we see someone flying across the screen, it's number 7. And he throws his body around as if he's 245 pounds. He's 195, soaking wet with his jersey wet. It's impressive to see him play like that, especially with all the guys around him moving around. He wasn't just like that in the run game. A couple of times he dropped back in coverage and took away some throws from Tua as well. It's very impressive to see him play in that manner, and they need him to step up. He's one of, if not the best nickel in the game, and he showed it again on Sunday.
One other guy I want to point out, I thought Boogie Basham had a really underrated pass rush game. He had a couple of really strong swipe moves to just take offensive tackles' hands away and get pressures. The Greg Rousseau solo sack was a Basham stunt where he took the guard out of the way and allowed a free run for Rousseau. Basham also had a stunt that set up Von Miller for a pass rush. So Basham, I didn't think, did a whole lot the first 2 games. But in this game, I might even make the argument he was the most valuable pass rusher in the game, based on the total effort. So very underrated game for him too.
I mean, they're going to need that from here going forward with all those pieces moving behind them. So, hey, Brandon Beane spent a lot of resources on that D-line. Hopefully they continue to play like that.
They weren't bad in this game, I'll tell you that. All right, thank you very much for listening and watching. For Carl Jones, I'm Thad Brown. We'll be here next Wednesday talking about Bills, Ravens. Hope you enjoyed it.